feet parallel, standing up really nice and tall, so a lovely lengthened spine. So we're looking at the plumb line, which is this vertical line, and then I also want you to be aware of the horizontal lines that are coming off of that. So the height of your shoulders, making sure they're nice and even, the hips equally, level with each other on a horizontal plane. So we've got the vertical plane of the plumb line and the horizontal plane, and it's partly a principle of Pilates. To just think about our overall good alignment. And so with the weight, with the feet, hip width apart, let's just rock forwards and backwards. So take the weight into the balls of the feet, which will make you scrunch your toes a little bit, and then pitch back so that you're moving through the heels. If I go sideways or a bit more of a sideways angle, maybe just put one hand on top and one hand, so one hand on your chest and one hand on your tummy, and just take that movement and notice that there's no change in the angle of my body. So I've got this lovely long lengthened spine, so it really is like there's a pole coming down through the centre. So what I mean by that is, in order to change the position of the weight and where that plumb line would fall, we're not changing anything else. We're not hinging at the hips. We're going to come back to that a little bit later. So let's take the weight forwards onto the balls of the feet, over to one side, and then down that side of that foot, back onto the heel. So we're sort of going around in a big square, through to the other heel, down the outside edge of the other foot, and again, across the little toe side, down the outside edge, through to the heel, across to the other heel. And now you'll probably find that you will adjust a little bit with your hips. That's absolutely fine. Change direction. So to the other, go in the other direction, the little toe side, and then all the way down the outside edge of that foot, across to the other heel. And try and notice, where are you moving from? Where are you making your adjustments? So I can feel adjustments at the ankle and the hip. My hips, my spine is pretty much staying in the same position. My torso is like a mannequin almost. And let's smooth, let's keep going in that same direction, but now smooth it out. So imagine a plumb line, like a decorator's, the original plumb line, which some of my younger clients have no idea what I'm talking about. But it was a piece of string that went from the ceiling to the floor, and it had a lead weight on the end of it, and there was chalk on the string. And so because of the lead weight, it would be a really true vertical line. And then the decorator would ping the chalk, I think, on the wall so that they knew where to do the wallpapering. So they had this perfect vertical line. So as we're taking this circle, let's change direction. As we're taking this circle now, imagine that lead weight is drawing a circle on the floor. And the reason that's drawing a circle is because your spine is maintaining this plumb line. So you're not tipping over at one side or the other. So we'll explore that a little bit more. Great. Let's keep the feet hip width apart. Let's take some reaches up. So we're quite narrow compared to where we normally are. Reaching up, trying to touch the ceiling. 4 or 6, and then let the arms drop down. We're going to take a roll down. I want you to think about where your weight is over your feet as you do this. So take the chin onto the chest. Allow the arms to hang forwards, allow the shoulders to hang forwards and round. Soften the knees. Think of the weight, your plumb line, still being in the middle of your feet. So between both feet, and also the middle of your actual foot, so the middle of your instep, and then roll back up again. Unravelling through the spine. So again, I'm just going to turn sideways. So what I quite often see with the roll down is people start here, and then when they start to pitch forwards, they stick the bottom out. Now that would actually take the plumb line way back here. It will take the plumb line to my heel. So my pubic bone is like, the pubic bone is where your pelvis is basically where the plumb line's coming out from if you're looking to the floor. So if you stick your bottom back and hinge at your hips, that plumb line is going to be back all the way. So let's try one more. Keep your pelvis, keep your pubic bone over your middle of your feet. So you've got to keep that belly button pulled in nice and tight. When you get to as far as you can with that upper back, that's the point when it would be nice and comfortable to stick your bottom out, but try not to. There will absolutely be a point where the hips hinge, but try and maintain equal amount of weight over the balls of the feet and the heels, and then rolling back up. Something to think about with your roll downs all the way, every time you do those. Okay, let's take the feet a little bit wider now, so shoulder width apart. Let's take our reaches up again. Try not to always lead with the same arm, which I did just caught myself just before I started to do it. So we're lifting up, trying to touch the ceiling, lengthening the spine, and then let the arms drop down. Arms are by your side. Now just tip your upper body over from side to side. So you've lifted the rib cage off of the hips. And we're just nice and gently stretching the side seam of the back. Think about your weight in both feet. It should be completely equal. There's no transference of weight from side to side at all. Take the hands to the head, touching your head, elbows out to the side. So now you've got a bit more weight in that upper body as you go from side to side. Notice the difference. If it's uncomfortable for you, keep your arms down. And my waist downwards is remaining still. There's no change. I'm not transferring. Let's take the arms out to the side and now lengthen and flow the arms. So now there's a lot more weight in that upper body. Plus we've got the movement of the arms changing from side to side. But I feel like my plumb line is remaining absolutely true, completely in the middle of both legs. Good, holding over to one side. This time push your hips over to one side. And once you've pushed those hips over to one side, you should be able to get a little bit more length in that side bend. Push over to the side and lengthen. And so now the plumb line, so from the pubic bone, it's just shifted over towards the leg that you're pushing your hips towards. And that means you can counterbalance a little bit more with your upper body. So thinking about the shape now we're creating, we did a really nice straight line, a really straight line. Now we're creating a curve, and we're going to try and recreate that when we come down to the floor. All the way over, and wonderful, and relax. Brilliant. We are going to, let's just do one more of those each side, and let's roll down to the floor and just take some knee bends and straightening the legs to stretch the hamstrings, and then we're going to take a little rotation. In fact, maybe have a little look first. So I'm here, this is just the plain upper body side bend. I'm going to push my hips over a little bit, soften the knees, relax down and come back to the central position. Just nod your head. You're going to straighten and bend your knees a couple of times. Then we're going to keep the legs straight. You're going to bend one knee at a time. And we're going to open up one arm at a time and then roll up. Here we go, if you hadn't already started that. I'm going to go to the other side first. So we're stretching over. So this is just upper body. Then I'm going to just push those hips away. Keep breathing. Bend the knees, bring the hips back into the middle so you're equally weighted. Let the head hang. Hands should be down to the floor, knees are bent. And then just straighten the legs and soften the knees. Just to warm up those hamstrings, stretching the backs of the legs. Breathe. And then straighten both legs. Now just bend one knee at a time.
and feel what's going on with your hips. Your pelvis looks like a seesaw if you were able to see yourself, because one hip will drop down when you bend that knee. So keep bending from one side to the other. Hopefully that should feel quite nice. And then keep one leg bent and the other leg straight. Have your the hand the same side as the bent leg. Keep that hand on the floor and open up the other arm all the way out to the side and reach it round. Open up your shoulders. So you've already rotated your pelvis. Now you're rotating the shoulders, and that should feel quite nice. Bring that arm back down, swap the legs over, swap the arms. So the bent leg arm, that side stays on the floor, the other arm, the straight arm, sweeps up to the ceiling, and it should be quite comfortable because you've already rotated your pelvis. One more each side, hands are down, swap the legs over. So lift the arm on the straight leg side. You should be able to reach that arm all the way up to the ceiling. You're trying to look at the hand. Straighten the other leg, sweep and open up. And then come back to the middle, bend both legs, roll up in the centre, all the way up to the top and relax. My hair is looking all over the place today. I should have put it up. Great. Okay, so let's think about rotation around the spine. So let's keep the feet parallel. So rotation around this plumb line. Let's pop the hands on the shoulders. So a hula hoop rotation. So you're thinking about a hula hoop. I have to think about that a moment. Thinking about a hula hoop being around your shoulders, level with your shoulders, which is also level with where your elbows are at the moment. And because you're really upright and central with that plumb line, that wonderful vertical line, you're just rotating your whole torso and your hips, and the ankles will take a little bit of rotation as well, around that central line. Good, and then just let the arms hang and let them be really relaxed. It's exactly the same thing. The reason I call that the hula hoop, the hula hoop overlap, that's it, I've forgotten what I call it. And it's my invention, that one. It's because you're thinking about your elbows touching the inside of that hula hoop, or that circle, and there's an overlap. There's an overlap at the front and the back. My elbow that's at the front has gone all the way to the other corner. The elbow at the back has gone to the opposite corner, and then there's this overlap. If you were drawing, if you had paint on your elbows and you were drawing along the inside of that hula hoop, that would be your overlap. If you don't rotate very much and you're here, in fact, so now fix the ankles facing forwards, fix the hips facing forwards, and just try and move the shoulders, you don't get an overlap. So we are rotating, but we're only rotating this upper thoracic part of the spine, which really doesn't go very far. It's quite frustrating. So that's why we want that whole rotation all the way around the spine. Okay, let's think about the plumb line a little bit more. Let's keep the feet wide. Let's have one hand on your chest, one hand on your lower tummy. So as I look down, this hand is above this hand, which is on my tummy. So and this is sort of representing the straight plumb line. And if that lead weight, if I could see that lead weight, it would fall there, completely between my feet. And as I look down, that's exactly where I want it to be. And then we're going to transfer all the way over to one leg. And as I look down again, so now I can see this hand is above this hand. So I know I've taken my torso over all the way. And then this hand is actually above the middle of this foot. That's where your plumb line needs to go.
And then once I'm all the way over there, remember, so this is your vertical line, and then we've got these horizontal lines. If you took the arms out to the side, and also if you took something out from the side of your hips. So I know I'm in my vertical line because these hands are level, one is above the other, and then the other test is that I can take this leg away. So I've completely taken my plumb line over to my standing leg now, and I've got my plumb line in place so that I can do anything with that spare leg. And then let's come back to the middle and try the other side. So what quite often happens with this, and I see this a lot, is people think that they've transferred their weight, taken that plumb line over, but if I do this, what happens is I generally don't take the hips over enough. So those hips get left behind. So now, as I look down in this position, so I haven't quite transferred my hips over with me, this hand is where it was before. This hand is not underneath this hand, it's slightly over to the side. It's actually still in the middle pretty much. But this hand is actually above this foot. That's where my plumb line should be. But when I'm here, I haven't fully committed. I can't really lift that leg up very comfortably. And also, I could probably lift that leg up, but in order to lift that leg up, I'd have to cheat and tilt my upper body. So now I'm really not, these hands really aren't in line. So it's there. You drop down into that hip. So one hand above the other, onto that plumb line as I can see it down to the floor, and then I'm free to do what I want to with this leg. My shoulders are level, my hips are level. They're on that horizontal plane, nothing has changed. I'm starting to wobble about a bit now. So let's take the arms out to the side, let's try that. So keep the hands here if you haven't quite got that yet, if you're not finishing with one hand, this lower hand directly underneath that top hand. Otherwise, if you can, take your arms out to the side. And then we're transferring, completely transferring. So I'm going quite fast. You might need to go a little bit slower than this. You might need to just adjust a bit. But this is the key part. Torso. So I've sort of worn this black top today so that you can really see what's going on against the white wall of the background of the white wall. And also you've got this contrasting line. If I try and lift that leg too high, absolutely everything's going to get distorted. I'm going to crunch on this side, trying to keep both legs level. And it looks like I'm collapsing in on this hip, but I'm not. I'm lifting up out of it. Great. Do 4 more for me. Over to one side, hold it there if you can. Now I want you to tilt. So in this star shape, I want you to actively lift this hip, but lift your torso as one unit and your spine. Tilt it. So the angle from my pubic bone through my nose to the top of my head, that's still a straight line. And my arms and my legs are just helping with that position, but the torso, the plumb line is intact. Over to the other side. This is quite hard work on the legs. I can feel my legs working quite a bit. So I'm lifting my hip. I'm keeping that straight line. Keeping this straight line. Keeping that plumb line. Ooh, that's quite hard work. One more each side. So start square. Square to the floor. Arms are square. Lift the leg up. Now tilt. Tilt, 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 tilt. Legs are staying straight if you can. Yeah. And one more. This is strong. Really square to start with. And then we're tilting over to the side. Great. And coming back. Those legs a bit of shape. Brilliant. Okay, well done. We have done our stars. We're going to come down to the floor from here. So, but let's do a little bit of stretching first of all. So what I would like you to do is have the feet quite wide. I just want you again to transfer your weight. Think about where that plumb line is, transferring the weight. So the spine, the torso is going to stay in the same position. So we just, if you think about it, we just looked at the plumb line from side to side. We shifted it from side to side, and then we tilted it on a sideways plane. I now want you to think about shifting the plumb line and the torso and the spine. So this sort of mannequin position of your body, if you like, keeping it in the same straight line, but you're now hinging at the hips. So feet are quite wide. I've just gone on a slight diagonal so that you can see. Feet are quite wide and parallel. I'm sending my bottom back, so the weight is going into my heels. My knees are quite soft. I'm not changing that lovely straight line. But my plumb line, if it comes from the pubic bone, the weight has shifted back because there has to be a bit of a counterbalance, and it'll probably be quite comfortable to reach the arms forwards and then come up. Let's take that into a nice squat, and then working up to a deep squat. So maybe turn the toes out a little bit, not just the toes, sorry, turn the whole legs out in the hip socket, so that when you send your butt back and bend your knees, you're just freeing up the hips. My spine is nice and upright. I'm trying to drop quite low. This might not be, you might not be up for that just yet. So just take a little hinge and a little knee bend, but make sure that weight is in your heels. I can tap both of the fronts of my feet. So, and then keep going. You're aiming to come down a little bit lower with those hips. Notice the shape of my back, the angle of my back doesn't really change that much. Just in my ears sticking out of my hair. A nightmare today with the hair. I'm trying to just drop my hips down a little bit more. So remember, one of the 10 things to do every day is your deep squats all the way down to the floor. So that's what we're looking for. So now I've turned back to face the monitor. I can see the symmetry in my legs, equally really important. So if you've got an injury, you might be going over to one side. So that plumb line in this position, I'm hugely exaggerating it, the plumb line is going to fall over closer to this leg than the other leg because I'm pulling away from this leg. You want to be really in the middle, equally weighted over both legs. Brilliant. Let's keep the legs wide. Let's have the insteps really parallel. Let's again hinge from the hips to come forwards into that hamstring stretch. So wide-legged hip hinge, stretching of the backs of the legs, coming up again. Let's take the arms out to the side. Pitching forwards. This is quite strong. Arms are out to the side. They're parallel to the floor. From there, I'm just going to bend my knees and straighten my legs. If I go at a slight angle, I'm bending my knees, but I'm taking my torso down with me. Knees are going over the toes. Bending and straightening. Wonderful. Let's bend those knees. Keep the arms out nice and wide for the moment. Keep your back in its natural curves. Then release. Take the hands down. Take the head down. Relax. Walk the hands forward slightly and take your shoulders over your hands. So I call this a short downward dog. I'm not trying to straighten my legs, and then walk the hands back again. So thinking about weight transference now through your hands. When you're back here, your centre of gravity is between both legs. As you transfer forwards onto the hands and then take your shoulders over and past your fingertips, that makes a big difference
for the upper body strength, and that's something that we really need. Okay, I wanted to, where were we going to go with this one? Down dog, transferring weight into the hands. Yeah, I'm just going to turn to the side. So let's use this to come down to the floor. So feet are nice and wide. Let's take our hip hinge. So I'm using the length of my yoga mat just because that helps me with where I am in space, if you like. Arms out to the side again. Just come away a little bit. Bending the knees, straightening the legs. Bending the knees, straightening the legs. Bend the knees one more time. Take your hands all the way down. Relax the head. Walk the hands forwards. There's no weight in them here. And then I'm going to walk them a tiny bit more. Keep the shoulders, or bring the shoulders over my fingertips. Legs are still bent, and then walk back again. Bring the weight back into my feet. Walking forwards, maybe going a little bit more this time. Taking my shoulders more over my hands, over my fingertips, so that I can straighten my legs. Bending my knees, walking back again. One more of those. And then moving around. So I've straightened out my legs, my shoulders are over my hands. I'm going to bring my feet much closer together. And then I'm in my wonderful straight body, as if I was standing up with my hands out in front of me in the plank, holding that there a moment. Maybe just having a little shift from side to side. And then lowering the knees and relaxing when you need to. Brilliant. I'm just going to move my monitors down a little bit, and then we're going to come down back onto all fours. So hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. I've got that the right way around. Fingers and thumbs spread far apart. Let's take some nice big shoulder rolls. So I'm taking my shoulders back, up towards the ceiling, forwards towards my ears, and then lifting up, lifting my rib cage up. And it's very strong, this. I actually really like this for warming up the shoulders. And let's reverse it. Bringing them forwards, allowing the rib cage to drop down. Great, let's mobilise the whole spine on two different planes. So initially let's take a horizontal plane, thinking about the rib cage. So I'm taking the rib cage out to the side, up to the ceiling, out to the other side, and dropping it down towards the floor. 2 or 3 in each direction. Top's a bit short for this movement. It's about, it's probably about 20 odd years old. I think probably more than that actually. It's quite scary. I like to hold on to my clothes. So that's your horizontal, no, that's your vertical circle. And then let's take a horizontal circle. So notice the difference. Same as when we were standing up with our feet hip width apart at the very beginning. Where are you making adjustments to make this happen? Where are you feeling the stresses? Change direction. So I can definitely feel it in my wrists, which is great. I want to feel it in my wrists. I can feel a little bit of adjusting in the hip socket, the front of the hips, side of the hips. And the knees, shins are rolling over. Everything's accommodating. Basically keeping the spine pretty much as it is, but moving around. And again, if you had that plumb line, say the plumb line this time was coming out from your belly button, that lead weight, imagine that you're drawing a circle there. So that's what this class is all about. Great. Okay, let's come down onto our elbows. So elbows and knees to start with. This is quite a strong thing. So think about what we were just thinking about with the plumb line coming out from your belly button, let's say, or that lead weight, and this movement creating the circle of the lead weight on the floor. When we were doing these ones, the vertical, it didn't change because we were moving on a circular plane here. We didn't go from side to side. We did, but on a vertical plane, if that makes sense. Okay, so come down onto your elbows. Elbows are underneath your shoulders, hands are clasped together. Curl your toes under and lift your hips. I'm just going to tuck this in a little bit. You're going to lift your hips, so you're in a like a downward dog position, and I actually want you to bring your feet in a little bit more if you can. So hips are really high, legs are nice and straight. You're just going to take your chin past your hands and then lift back again. Think about that plumb line. If it's here, opposite your centre, your belly button, your pubic bone, your pelvis, you're taking it slightly forwards, so stressing the shoulders in a really good way. It's not, and I can't even do it, my legs are too close in, but it's not here, it's not that. It's not lifting and lowering the hips. It's hips as high as you can get them. Basically they're staying high to come forwards. Keep the chin tucked in so that you keep the back of the neck lengthened, otherwise it can get a little bit grippy there. Well done. Come down onto those knees. Stay on your elbows. And let's come back with your hips on your heels. So big toes together, knees nice and wide. Staying on your elbows and bring your elbows together. Elbows are underneath your shoulders. So looking at rotation again around the spine. We're going to come into a salute with one hand, and then just maybe watch me so that I've taken the hand closer to the monitor. This elbow is staying underneath me in my centre, my hips are staying still. I'm wincing a bit because it's quite strong, quite hard to do. And then we're lifting and rotating. I'm trying to look past that elbow, but it doesn't really go very far. So elbows are together so that you're underneath, you're in your centre. If you're out here with the elbows, if the elbows are wide apart, you're not going to get anywhere near as much rotation. It's not going to be a true rotation around your spine. That's what we're after. So hand closest to the monitor so that you can see what's going on. And then rotate, look, try and look past that elbow. Come back to your shoulders being square 3 times. Breathing. So the goal here is to keep the hips still. Swapping sides, so away from your screen, turning away from me so that you can't really see what's going on, but just notice. It doesn't matter, you don't need to see, you can feel what's going on in your body. Come back to the centre. How did that feel? If you really notice that one side was much tighter than the other, do one more set of 3 on your tighter side. If you weren't sure, do another couple on each side. Remember, you're trying to rotate as much as possible without the hips and the pelvis joining in. It's quite strong movement. So just another couple on each side. Rotating around that spine. Great. Okay, rolling down onto your backs. So we're going to take some midline squeeze. So thinking about the plumb line all up through the centre of the body. Or yeah, think so it's changed from a plumb line because we're not looking when gravity isn't in the picture anymore. It's changed from a plumb line to a midline squeeze. So thinking about this central line all the way up through your body. So I'd like you to squeeze your feet and your knees together. Have your legs bent, your heels quite close to your bottom. And then think of this wonderful straight line from your toes along the inside edge of your both feet to your knees, to your pubic bone. And then it's coming all the way up the centre. In fact, trace this line with your fingertips. So from your pubic bone all the way up through the centre, past your belly button, middle of the chest, hands come underneath the chin, to your chin, over your mouth, through your nose, middle of your forehead, and then it goes out and carries on lengthening up and along the floor. Just bring your arms down by your side, tucking your chin in. So you've got this wonderful straight line. I want you to squeeze your knees together for all your worth, and try and squeeze your insteps together if you can. Think about drawing everything in towards this midline. Keep those knees squeezing. In fact, let's just take the heels out a little bit. So you've slightly internally rotated your thigh bones, which is great for your sacroiliac joint. Squeeze the knees together. Also, so you've taken your heels out slightly, try and push your big toe joints together. Hold that squeeze, really keep working hard. Be very aware of the shape of the rest of your spine, and let's just take some rib cage closure. So breath out to go back, breath in to return. 4 or 5 of these. So it does what it says on the tin. I'm working really hard to think about that midline, pushing everything in towards it and not allowing the arms to disturb anything. The arms are just moving. I'm working hard to keep that rib cage drawn down and in towards the centre. Noticing as you take the arms back, you shouldn't be lifting the chin, head should be staying nice and heavy. Let's take one arm up and one arm down. So backstroke arms, keep the squeeze. Keep the squeeze on the knees and the feet. Relaxing the buttocks. You shouldn't be using your buttocks for this movement at all. This is all pelvic floor, your deep internal stabilising muscles around the pelvic floor, the pubic bone, inside thighs, muscles which we don't really work very much. We don't really build enough stamina in them to be able to support us. That's what we're trying to do today. Brilliant. Okay, let's leave one arm back. So I'm going to give, it doesn't matter which one actually, I'm going to take my right arm back, the one furthest away from the screen. I'm not necessarily touching the floor, I just want you to reach that away. Make sure that that same side rib cage is really drawn down. And then extend, so bring your heels back together again so your legs are parallel. Extend the other leg, the opposite leg, away along the floor. Pelvis absolutely level. And I want you to carry on thinking about drawing those legs towards the centre, towards that midline. I'm not resting the leg on the floor. I'm just letting it hang. My calf and my heel are just brushing the floor. They're just slightly touching the floor. But I'm thinking of this lovely crossways line, this diagonal line from the top hand to the foot that's lengthened away. I'm trying to still draw everything towards that line in the middle. Drawing this rib cage down, same side rib cage as the arm that's up and back. Draw it into the hip pocket at the front on that same side. Put it in the pocket. Holding that there. Great, bring that leg back in. Swap over to the other side. Take the arm out first. Squeeze your legs together. Connect the rib cage. Hold that there. Draw the belly button in. Lift the pelvic floor. Then slide the opposite leg away. So you've now, it's like you've got an imaginary line between your legs. There's nowhere to go with it. But carry on, drawing into the centre. Keep breathing. Relax that leg, but don't actually rest it on the floor. Pelvis is level. Holding that there. Couple more breaths. Think of that midline. So inside thighs might be starting to shake a little bit. Mine definitely are. Keep that shoulder blade on the side of the arm that's lifted away. Keep that drawn down as well. And bend back in. Brilliant. Let's place the hands at the back of the head. I'm just going to shuffle away a little bit. So hands at the back of the head, and take an abdominal curl. Hold it up there, keep your shoulder blades cleared if you can, keep the elbows nice and forwards, and slide one leg and then the other leg away and flex your feet. And have your feet a little bit apart, so hip width distance apart. So I'm in my abdominal curl. I'm actually in what I call comfy position at the moment. My shoulder blades are still in contact with the mat. I'm thinking about my midline squeeze, and I've got this seam down the front of my leggings here. So it's a nice reminder. So midline squeeze, but also that plumb line when we were standing up. Let's just turn the legs out. So keep the feet flexed, turn the legs out in the hip socket, and you're going to draw your heels together, both legs at the same time, squeezing towards that midline. I'm resting on my shoulder blades, but I have got a little bit of connection in my upper torso. So keeping the feet flexed, keeping the legs turned out, squeezing those heels together. Let's change it up to point and flex. Point one time, flex the next. Pointing the feet, flexing the feet. Pointing and flexing. And pointing and flexing. Really squeezing those heels together, coming into that midline every single time. Okay, the next set, bring the feet together, keep them turned out, so your heels together if you can. You're going to hold one leg still, you're going to point the foot of the other leg, and I'm going to use the leg that's closest to the monitor so you can see. I'm going to open and close. Just 5 times on that one side. My other leg is staying completely still, my pelvis is staying still, opening and closing, squeezing into that midline. This is strong work on those inside thighs. 5, and then swap sides. So flex the other foot, so you're in your like a ballet first position, legs are turned out. Fix one leg, point the foot on the other leg, open and close. Open and close. And in this position with your upper body, you should hopefully be able to see a little bit of what's going on. But if you can't quite see, it's absolutely fine. Try and keep that head up, and you will absolutely be aware that you're taking some quite strong work in that midline squeeze. And relax, that head roll down, bend those knees, have a little roll from side to side. Brilliant. Okay, let's move on to 2 more things. Side lying. Again, working a lot on those inside thighs today, but already good. So I want you to think about as well, as we do this side lying stuff, we're going to start thinking about the really nice straight line that we have at the beginning. So when we were standing, when we're thinking about our plumb line. So yeah, spine really nice and straight. So legs are lengthened away, maybe flex the feet, imagine you're standing, lengthen that top leg away a little bit. Hips should be stacked, one on top of the other. The waist should be lifted ideally. Turn the palm up on that underneath arm if you can, just to get a little bit of a more sense of drawing down that shoulder blade on that side. We're going to let's lift both legs up to the height of the body, keeping the feet flexed. So we're in this wonderful straight line. I want you to hold the top leg still. You're going to lower the underneath leg, pointing it as you lower, and flex to lift it back up. Point to lower and flex to lift it back up. So fairly similar to what we just did, just in a different position in relationship to the floor and gravity, slightly working different muscles. Pointing and flexing, so getting those ankles and toes working. Now if you are feeling particularly strong today, notice I've gone very slow now because I'm having to really concentrate. Try taking that arm up to the ceiling and just balancing there. Letting this underneath the ear on that side that's touching the arm, just slightly lift that ear off so you're lengthening away. Okay, I'm going to hold both feet up. I'm going to point one, flex the other. Marching feet. Whilst I'm doing that, I'm going to make a soft fist with that top arm. I'm going to lower top arm slowly towards the floor and then bring it back up again. Keeping that waist lifted. 2 more of these if you can. Really slowly. Allow your body to make the adjustments. Don't just whiz through it and get through it by any means. Lower and lift back. Wonderful. Lower the arms, lower the legs even. Lower the arm and lower the legs. Get my plurals right in a minute. And place that top arm along your side. So we've been working in a wonderful straight line. I now want you to think about just lifting both ends up together. So the head to the feet is making a shallow curve and then lower. This is quite strong. You might want to place your fingertips on the floor here. So your legs will be able to go up much higher than the upper body. Really try and stay sideways. Head and feet ideally finish at the same height. And you're creating this curve in the body. That's 3. Let's take 2 more if you can. Lengthen, 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 lengthen. And I'm pushing down on this underneath shoulder. I'm drawing that side in. That was the last one. Oh, well done. Swapping over to the other side. So beautiful straight line. Palm up on that underneath, that top arm. Legs up. Flexing the feet, holding it there, lowering that underneath leg to the floor, pointing the foot and then flexing to lift back up again. Lower and flex to lift. Keeping the top leg absolutely still. If you're able to, it's much more challenging for me on this side. The arm up to the ceiling. Couple more if you can, so that you don't want to let this top hip roll back. Keep the hips absolutely stacked. Try and keep the waist lifted away. Try and just not to be too heavy with that head on that arm. You're lengthening out through the crown of your head. Couple more of these. Last one, holding those legs up. Pointing one, flexing the other. Keeping the legs up, make that underneath inside thigh. That's where you should be feeling some work. Make a soft fist, here we go. Marching feet and lowering the arms slowly. Just so that it's opposite your shoulder and then lift it back up again. Slowly, slowly down, slowly up. Allow the crossways muscles to do their job of supporting you. of these. Wonderful. Lowering down. I think I had my hand on the floor for these last ones. I think I might have tried with the arm, but I'm not sure it's going to work this side. No. So a light fingertip touch, basically so that you don't roll forwards or backwards. Stay really sideways on. Think of your side seam making the curve, legs and arms, and actually it does help to push down a little bit on those fingertips, but don't let your shoulder roll forwards. Interesting, that feels a bit stronger on this side, weirdly. I'm drawing down and under with this underneath shoulder as well. I'm drawing my shoulder blade down in my back towards my hips. It's quite strong work on the shoulder. One more, I think. Oh, well done. Wonderful. Let's come on to your tummies. Last part of thinking about the spine, thinking about rotation. So we're into our star position. So arms outstretched, legs outstretched. Chin tucked in, so the tip of your nose is just hovering off the floor. Push the pubic bone into the mat. Make sure you've connected your rib cage to your hips. Lift the back of the head and neck up. So I'm in a sort of quarter, what I would call a quarter cobra. So I've got my bottom 3 or 4 ribs at the front still in contact with the mat, but I've lifted up quite high. I'm going to push down on opposite arm and leg and lift the other side, opposite arm and leg, and then lower, and then swap sides. Pushing down, using the floor to help me just float that arm and leg off. Think about the spine. Think about, as I said at the beginning, you had that vertical line of the spine, and then you had your horizontal line of the shoulders and the hips. Neither of those are changing. So your vertical line isn't changing, but it's fairly easy not to change in this position because we're taking opposite arm and leg. But notice whether the horizontal lines from one shoulder to the other, keep going by the way, and one hip to the other, whether that's changing, whether it's seesawing or taking any rotation. Try not to let any rotation happen. And then I'm gradually, because I'm feeling quite strong today, I'm going to not reverse the movement, but change the feel of the movement. I'm going to lift all 4 limbs off and then touch opposite and touch. So the emphasis now is holding the limbs in the air and touching, 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 touching. Shoulders and hips absolutely stable, secure, not changing, not rocking and rolling from side to side at all. And then see if you can really challenge yourself. You've got a paddle of water, an inch of water underneath your hands and your feet. Make that water splash. Splash, 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 splash. Just an inch there. Tap the floor fast as you can, holding everything still. Don't forget to breathe. And whoo, brilliant. And well done. Let's finish off with some bear walks. Haven't done those for ages. So on all fours, I'm just going to back up towards the end of my yoga mat, curling the toes under, opposite arm and leg. The hand reaches forwards, then the leg comes forwards. Hand and then leg, hand and leg. Make every single part of this as stretchy as you possibly can. When you reverse it, lead with the toes first, then move the hand. Make it all stretchy. Getting that wonderful stretch through the calves. Think of this lovely crossways line from one opposite hand to foot. This is how we naturally move. But we're moving around that central line of the spine, and that is my rhyme for the day. I'm going to leave you there with that. Well done, thank you very much for joining me. I hope to see you again soon.